Hi, everyone. So, this is going to be part two of a two-part series on some recent right-wing violence. Part one was on the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting and Fox News and Trump's rhetoric and also propaganda's role in that tragedy. This is part two that you're about to see, and this is going to cover the explosive devices sent to prominent liberals and critics of Donald Trump. And I'm going to focus a little bit on the demonization of media, the us versus them mentality, and how violence has been encouraged and also glorified at certain points by Trump and some of his allies in the media. I want to talk first a little bit about the situation itself to give some context to what I'm talking about here. So the situation, Monday of last week, um, a explosive device was sent to George Soros's home. You might remember George Soros from my last video, where a lot of people use this billionaire Jewish philanthropist as a dog whistle for anti-Semitism. And then Wednesday, Clinton, John Brennan, who was the former CIA director. He was head of one of the intelligence communities under Obama. He's also a CNN contributor. So an explosive device was sent to CNN addressed to John Brennan. Barack Obama, Maxine Waters, Congresswoman from California, Eric Holder, the former Attorney General under Barack Obama. All of those people had explosive devices sent to them. Then on Thursday of last week, Robert De Niro, prominent actor and Trump critic, and then Joe Biden, former vice president of the United States. Same thing happened. Friday, James Clapper, another former Intel head, Senators Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, and then Tom Steyer, who is a billionaire liberal who has ran uh, impeachment advertisements targeted at Donald Trump. The one thing that they have in common, the one thread in common of all of these would be victims here are those that were vilified by Donald Trump, those that were critical of Donald Trump, or simply just Democrats and liberals. In total, there were 14 bombs sent to 12 potential targets. So I want to talk a little bit about the perpetrator of this event, and I'm going to focus in on his van because it says a lot about where he got his motivation and why, just why he wanted to do what he did. So this guy had this white van that he was, according to several people, um, he essentially was living in this van, and the vehicle had a bunch of pro-Trump and anti-Democrat messages, which, according to analysts who have since analyzed his social media accounts, these messages that were plastered on his van down in Florida, they reflect his social media accounts and the beliefs that he espoused on those accounts. So just to get it kick-started, there was several messages about the dishonest media. There was one that said CNN sucks. There was pictures of Clinton, Obama, Soros, etc., and some pictures of people of prominent liberals in crosshairs. There was also a quote Photoshop picture of Trump on a tank, haloed by fireworks, with an American flag behind him, close quote. This is per the New York Times, an article by Madigan and Harmon that came out last week. And this last one, this photo of Trump on a tank surrounded by fireworks and the American flag behind him, is really indicative of a cult of personality that Trump has worked hard to cultivate. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Trump's involvement here. You heard me talk about the van, the CNN sucks, the dishonest media stickers. Trump has been consistently vilifying the media Since he has been inaugurated as president, he has called them the enemy of the people. He has called them fake news more times than I can count. It's very similar to other uh, past authoritarians and some fascist leaders. Uh, Adolf Hitler famously dubbed the media of his time Lügenpresse, which is translated to lying press. So lying press, fake news, not too many dots uh, to connect here. The demonization of Hillary and Obama, his political opponents, which is very atypical. It's not typical for liberal democracies to do such thing, for leaders in liberal democracies to do such things. Crooked Hillary, lock her up, leading those chants at his rallies. Wild accusations against Obama, wiretaps, tweeting that he's a bad or sick guy. Just baseless. Deep state, the stoking of conspiratorial fires that people such as this man, people that have severe mental illnesses, that they take it much more seriously than some in our population might. I mean, this man is just cultivating this type of stuff that was shown on the van and on this man's social media accounts. He's cultivating it at every single turn. Then you go on to, as commander in chief, mind you, a person who has a bully pulpit to stand on, Trump's general encouragement of violence and outright glorification of violence. He praised a Montana congressman for body slamming a reporter. At his rallies, he said he, quote unquote, wanted his supporters to knock the hell out of them in terms of people that were protesting him at rallies. He even went so far as to say that he would pay their legal fees if they did get violent. In terms of another protester, he said that he himself would like to punch them in the face. He made comments. This next one's really ironic. He talks about how isn't there due process anymore? In terms of Kavanaugh, he said, "What are we just going to presume this guy guilty until proven innocent?" Well, when it came to booking suspects, he said, "Don't cover their head as you put them into the cop car. Rough them up, rough them up." It's unbelievable. Um, then, in reference to Hillary again, he made up this huge lie about how Hillary would try to take everyone's guns away. I mean, how how predictable is this? Right wingers said the same exact thing about Barack Obama uh, in 2008, and that didn't happen. But he said, of course, that maybe the Second Amendment people can do something. Maybe the Second Amendment people can do something. He said that tongue in cheek, just to leave just enough wiggle room that it could mean either voting or it could mean gunning down uh, the Democratic candidate for president. So all of these things, his rhetoric means things, especially as the president, and people take it seriously. The last note that I'll make is talking about Trump and his cultivation of a cult of personality. Remember, I was talking about how the perpetrator of this would-be terrorist attack, he had a sticker of a Trump on a tank with fireworks, American flag, all of those things. So, cult of personality is when things such as the mass media, propaganda, what's called the big lie, patriotism, and rallies are used to create an idealized, heroic, and worshipful image of a leader. And it's usually found in more repressive, less democratic countries. And it's cultivated generally through unquestioning, absolutely unflappable flattery and praise. So Trump's attempts to discredit the media, which doesn't report news how he wants it, is right in line with this. And he has said as much before, where he has said in the past, if something didn't look so good for him, it was fake news. It was discredited in his mind. And so this leads us to Fox News and their culpability in all of this. Many anchors on that network, they never criticize him, and I mean never. And this is even for the exact same things that they crushed Obama on. There are some exceptions to the rule. Shepard Smith is a shining beacon of light. There's one or two other folks that report news on there that are more realistic, that don't just heap unconditional praise on Donald Trump. But this unquestioning flattery and praise that a good portion of our population uses as their main source of news, it helps cultivate that cult of personality. Let's talk about the big lie. The big lie is something I know Hitler used, and I know many other, I'm sure other fascists and authoritarians and just people that were up to no good have used. The big lie is when you state something or you state things that are so blatantly false. You go real big with your lie. And the idea behind it is you do it and you do it over and over and over again. And the whole idea behind it is that the audience, the people that are receiving on the receiving end of that message say, there's no way this person could be so audacious and so bold to be such a liar right to our face. Right to our face. There's no way. So there has to be some element of truth to it. And you see Trump practicing the big lie on so many different things, but early on in his administration, repeating over and over again things like he had the biggest win in electoral college history, things that are first page Googleable. First page Google, you can disprove it. He was called out on it by people in press conferences before, but he would still repeat it. Or, the lie that it's harder for Republicans to win the electoral college than Democrats. It's just not true. And he would say it over and over again. And again, this is, there's so many more where that came from. But it's something that he peddles in. Rallies. What other American president has held rallies like 2 weeks after being elected? I mean, he talks about himself for mostly the entire event in a self-aggrandizing way, which is a way to prop himself up to make himself look and appear powerful. What other American politician has done that? It's makes no sense unless you are trying to create a cult of personality. Patriotism. Let's get to patriotism. He uses it under false pretenses. He claims that he's this uber patriotic person, which is complete and utter nonsense. He says he cares so much about the flag and the national anthem, but video evidence has shown that he doesn't even know the words to it. He mumbles through it. He's talked through it before. He doesn't care. It's something that he uses to try to make himself out to be this ultra patriotic, rah rah America type of person, and it's something he uses, and the people that buy it hook, line, and sinker. It's just quite sad. It's just quite sad. And then just that go along with that, the rhetoric about America being the best, being so ethnocentric, talking about how he's a nationalist. All of these things that he's saying or doing lead to propaganda posters with him standing on a tank with fireworks surrounding him uh, that end up plastered on a domestic terrorist van. In conclusion, while nobody was actually killed by the explosive devices, it was because the amazing people in law enforcement, Secret Service agents last week were able to intercept and defuse the situation. And this act of domestic terrorism is just flat unacceptable. I would say the same thing if it was targeting prominent right wing figures. And I would be remiss if I didn't say somewhere in this video that there is violence that has been perpetrated by the left wing before in America. It's not only right wing violence. However, this past couple of weeks, the past few years, it sure seems as if the right wing is the majority of these domestic issues. The perpetrator, his van, his social media accounts reflect the power of Fox News, the power of Trump's rhetoric and propaganda, and it's just a sad thing to see Americans being radicalized like this with no shame on the part of our commander in chief. So I'd just like to say that I'm happy that none of these prominent liberals or Trump critics were hurt, but that it just shows an ugly side of our country right now and where we are at politically, and it just shows a lack of shame and a lack of thought put into his words by Trump, or even more sinister, maybe the fact that he puts quite a lot of thought into some words that he uses over and over again and doesn't mind the ramifications of potential violence. So I'd like to thank all of you who tuned in. Please follow me on Twitter at JasonBPolitics. And I'm sure I will be getting back to you guys with another video very soon. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.